we ended our previous presentation talking about it's all about strengths development. There's a thing going on and across the universities where many universities across our nation are doing freshman orientations uh, to help students transition into being a college student. And a lot of universities, and Fresno Pacific's one of them, does some things with this whole strengths perspective. Um, and An interesting researcher, Michelle Lewis is her name. She's done quite a bit of research um, on the strengths perspective. Really nice gal. I got to talk to her on the phone about a year ago. She did her dissertation and follow up research uh, with this. She designed a freshman orientation at her university, at Bethel University up in Minnesota. And so what she did is um, she developed two different. She developed a curriculum to teach the freshmen some certain things. I don't remember what exactly about the freshman experience, what it was about, but she trained faculty to teach these courses, and then she had three different groups. She had a group that did strengths identification only, which means that all he did was take the strengths quest strength finder assessment, and that's all he did in the length of the program. Then the other group of students, the second group of students, took the strengths test assessment, but then the faculty who were trained taught them how to develop their talents for specific goals that had to do with being successful college students. And the third group was a control group. They didn't do anything. They never took a strengths anything at all. They didn't do anything. So they measured a whole bunch of things. I'll just read this off to you. Measured academic engagement. These are all different variables. Hope, perceived academic control, achievement, goal orientation, and mindset. We're going to talk about mindset and some of these engagement issues. But what it was found is that the students who were just doing strengths identification tended towards a fixed mindset, and whereas the groups in the strengths development and control groups did not experience this shift at all. So they shifted away from the growth mindset to a fixed mindset. That's the strength identification, whereas the strengths development, they didn't go from growth to a fixed. They actually tended to continue in that growth mindset, and then they also adopted the performance goals, the learning goals for education versus the strengths identification group tended just to focus on performance goals, which is we'll talk about in another presentation. So the critical takeaway from that particular research is that strengths development, not only just for college students so they don't burn out on school, is more important than just identifying their strengths. And to be honest with you, that's typically all that happens with this whole strengths movement, is that people identify, they take the strengths finder thing, they get their printout, and they don't do anything with it. And so my thing is that the thing I've been learning is how do we build this strength? Okay, so the first thing is that we have to understand is the talent. It's a predisposition. It's living within us. God gave us those things. Then what we have to do is we have to invest time and effort and energy into developing that particular task that we want to do. Again, we're not developing our talent, we're developing our task that we want to do, and that equals our strength. It's developed. Whatever strength, again, is an activity. And so the multiplier of the talent is the energy that we use. We have to spend time practicing the skill, or practicing, developing skills, and building knowledge. So let's have another example, a more concrete example in athletic training. Okay, so the goal, we have a student. We are a preceptor for a student. You're working with him or her. We'll call the student Joe. So Joe, you're Joe's preceptor, and Joe wants to learn how to develop rehab plans and wants to do a better job at developing rehab plans. He's had the course. He's a senior athletic training student, and he's taken the he's taken the Strength Finder assessment, because your university and your athletic training education program is a strengths program. So he has these talent themes: ideation, strategic, achiever, learner, and futuristic. And so we talk through those, what all those mean, how those show up in his life on a daily basis. And then we have to identify the kind of knowledge that he needs to develop and get to develop rehab plans. He needs anatomy, phys, therapeutic exercise programs of injuries. And these are just some examples of knowledge. There's probably more than this. What kind of skills does he need to know? He needs to know the skills of injury assessment, practice and working with patients, and obviously rehab. And then what we do is he's going to invest his time in those knowledge and skills using his various talent themes to develop the goal of becoming strong or stronger in developing rehab plans. He's going to use his talents to help him drive himself towards developing rehab plans. Another way to look at this is I'm not sure if that's the right term, but I'm just going to use the language. They're the 5 principles for a strengths education program. So we have these 5. First one is we always start with identify, which is going to be taking the exam, the inventory, to identify our natural talent themes. Then from there, our next principle is we need to affirm those themes. We need to get with significant others around us, usually family members, friends, and our clinical, our preceptors, our faculty members, to affirm that, yeah, we have these themes. I am an achiever, and I can see it like this. This is how I see it come to fruition in my life. Just those themes at this point. Now, we want to develop those themes into a strength for a specific activity by gaining knowledge and practicing those skills that we need. And we need to invest the time and energy and effort to use those themes to develop those specific strengths. Not all of us are going to be good at everything that we do. And that's one of the myths. If we work hard enough at something, we'll be excellent at it. And that's just not true. I can shoot free throws a million times. I'm never going to get good at playing basketball. Then after we develop a plan, after we start developing those things, we need a plan to use the strengths to meet our goals. These can be academic goals. If we're meeting with students as a faculty advisor, we can, or a preceptor, we can sit down with them each semester, or depending on how long you have the student, to what kind of things do you want to learn this semester? What kind of things do you want to learn while you're in this clinical rotation? And help them to make a plan to meet those goals. Then the fifth part, or the fifth principle, fifth step, whatever way you want to look at it, is to apply your strengths. Now we have developed a strength. We have developed some strengths. We are really good at our lower body assessment. And so now I want to apply that to learning upper body assessment, or designing specific lower body rehab. So realize that these aren't independent of one another. They're all working together at the same time. But these are the principles of a strengths education too. And they can be used at any learning environment in athletic training, the clinical, the lab, and in our classroom. And additionally to that is a mentor. That was kind of bouncy. So why is this good? Why is it good that we use a strengths-based approach? And the main reason why is because it helps student achievement. If we know what we're good at, what we're excellent at, it gives us confidence. We feel like we're going to be successful at where we're at. We have motivation to be excellent. And then we are engaged as a student. We're engaged as a worker if we're going to put this into the workplace. We go to work and we know that we can get the job done. We're going to have greater growth, greater likelihood of success when we use our strengths more frequently on a higher basis every day at work. We're going to be more successful, and that's true for students. So if a student can use their strengths as a student, they're going to be more successful in your classroom. I'm still trying to learn how to design a strengths-based course. One of the reasons why I did a sabbatical last year and took these classes down in Azusa, because I was trying to learn how to do this, and I'm still learning. So again, this information I got straight from Azusa Pacific and their courses. So as Dr. Schreiner taught, we have the instructor, the assignments, and the student. And our main purpose here is to motivate and engage students in their own learning so that they are able to reach optimal levels of achievement. So let's break down the instructor, the assignment, and students. So me as an instructor, I should work from my own strengths. What are my strengths as a teacher? So that means I need to reflect on that. What do I do well when I teach? What kind of classes should I teach with my kind of strengths that I have? I think I'm a better graduate, master's teacher than I am an undergraduate foundational 100, 200 levels class. Just over years of teaching, that's something that I've learned. I think I'm a better teacher at the graduate level. I should also encourage you as a student to identify your own strengths, and then we'll talk about that. Use your strengths in your education. So how do we teach students to apply their strengths to course assignments? And we'll talk about that in a second. So assignments, and I've tried to do this in this course, is provide a variety and choice, and allowing students to leverage their strengths. So I should give you the freedom to use, that's the right word, how I want to put this, that if you are better at, your strength is oral communication, some of your assignments should be done orally through audio presentations like I'm doing. But if you're a better writer, then you should have the freedom to write your paper. If you're more visual, again, I'm looking at task. um, you should be able to have the availability to do the assignment in the areas of your strength. And I'm completely okay if with the choice assignment and the signature assignment. If you want to do it a different way, then you still got to meet the criterion, the expectations of that assignment, but the way you present it can be done differently than the way I have it laid out. So if you want to write a paper instead of do an oral presentation, just let me know that. And I'm willing to work with whatever your strength is. It should be a strength. If you're not a good writer, that is not your strength. It's just the reality of it. So, other thing is with students, you need to be given the resources to identify your talents, which would be the Strengths Finder, and then the ability to give the students time outside of the class to develop them. That's one of the things I think it's critical with athletic training education, is that since we have clinical rotations, they can have time to work on those things and put into practice. We need to be very intentional in helping students to develop their strengths. That's all of us working together if we're in a faculty role in a specific athletic training education program. Now, I wish in our own grad program that I was better at this, designing this. I'm like I said when I started this particular slide, I'm still trying to figure out how to go about doing this. So the critical thing to take away is that we don't get rid of all the other things that we do in teaching as a strengths-based program. It's just another tool in a toolbox. And I think we have to look at education differently. Some people look at education as that the teacher is the disseminator of knowledge, and then the student is just the absorber of the knowledge. I don't think that's true, even though I'm doing a lot more lecture in this class than I really like. We really need to be partners in the learning process. I'm here to facilitate learning, help you learn, guide you down a path so you can learn the information. Again, from Dr. Schreiner, and she is one of the authors of a really good book that I'll show you in just a little bit. When you teach, you have to know who you are and teach from those strengths. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Got to know what level that you're comfortable at, what you can teach. Sometimes we have to teach outside of our strengths. You got to do that. Got to love what you do. Excuse me. Get paid, as people ask. And I remember when I was more on the clinical side, and I'd have discussions with student athletes when they're in the athletic training room doing treatments or whatever. I'd ask them what are they going to do for a job. I don't know. I says, well, secret is find something that you love doing and do it and get paid doing it. That's a critical thing, because goes with our call that God has called us to do something. And that's true of our teaching. That's what being strengths minded is all about. Working, doing those things that you love doing all the time. Help students connect with students where they are means try to help them develop over time. To take those talents, teach them how to develop them into a specific strength. What about in the classroom? So talked about this a bit. So provide clear expectations along with a choice, so students can capitalize on your strengths to master the course content. Make connections between the content and their own personhood. And all these have to do with making the material interesting and important to the student. How do we teach students to apply their strengths to the academic material? That's the critical thing. It takes time. And unfortunately, we're not going to have enough time in this class to even go into the details of how do we do that. So what about weaknesses? Do we just blow them off? Do we talk about them? What is a weakness? First, Buckingham and Clifton in their Now Discover Your Strengths book define a weakness as anything that gets in the way of excellent performance. So, I'll give you a practical example of a weakness for me. A weakness for me is paper. Filing. Man, when that was one of the things that I was just so horrible at as the athletic trainer here at Fresno Pacific. My file system was just pitiful. It was just bad. And then about 4 years ago, I think, I was asked to take on a role at the university called the Chair for Institutional Review Board, which is anytime anybody's going to do research on a human being, it has to be approved by what's called IRB, Institute Review Board. And it's a lot of paperwork. And I go, okay, how am I going to manage around this? How am I going to get this thing done and be successful in this role? What strength can I leverage in order to manage around this weakness? So let's look at our steps here. So we manage around them. So we get a little bit better at it. I've gotten a little bit better. I actually bought a filing system here at home that helps me put paper in its proper place. Support system. Have somebody else that's good at organizing help you with that. My wife is really good at organization. We also hired a professional organizer when we found out we were having twins here at the house. And so she came in and gave us some tips. So you can do that at work too. Find somebody at your workplace that's really good at whatever your weakness is. Maybe they're good at that and they can help you with that. Maybe you can use a strengths theme to overcome the weakness. All this information is from Now Discover Your Strengths. Find a partner. I think those go with the support system myself. And sometimes you just got to stop doing it. So how did I fix my paper problem when I became IRB chair? I came to realize that if I can get my documents on my computer, I can get it organized. It's the same system that people do on paper is folders, and more folders. But for whatever reason, if I can get it into electronic format, I can get it organized. I can use my achiever and my other talents to turn that weakness into something I can manage. I'm still not the best at it, but at least I can manage it. At least I know where things are at now. So we don't abandon the things that we're not good at. We just have to learn how to manage around those things we're not so good at, and not invest so much of our energy and our time in those things that we're not good at. We need to spend our time and our energy on the things that we do well, do good. Some resources. Out of the 3 books there that I have pictures of, I think Go Put Your Strengths to Work is the most practical. Really like the practicality of that book. The Strengths Quest book is good for like if you have kids that are going to college. It's used pretty much in the college realm for like the freshman experience. And we use that Strengths Quest book in the grad program in the Kinesiology 777A issues in kinesiology, where we go over the strength stuff. The Now Discover Your Strengths is good too. It provides a lot of good foundational information. There's another book I didn't put up there. It's First Break All the Rules. It's another Marcus Buckingham book. Buckingham's kind of gone off in his own direction. He's no longer with Gallup, but he writes some really good stuff. He's got some good stuff online. So I'd recommend any of those books. And I have some articles you can read about this stuff if you're more interested in this area. If you want to do your strengths assignment, your signature assignment on a lesson planning one, and you want to use a strengths-based lesson, go for it. I'd be happy to do that. I look forward to seeing what you think about all this stuff as we go through the different types of educational theories this week.